Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. So, thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Yes, would you like to sit in this blue chair or in this,
Oh, no, you see, listen.
You gave your options.
what is it? Or is that comfortable?
Well, okay, I'll sit there.
Leslie, do you wanna?
I'll take that as an upgrade. Ooh. Could you focus this so it's kind of like a...
Yes. How close would you like it?
Oh, a little bit more, warmer. Okay, that's good.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, here, let's see. There, that's good. So, thank you all for coming. And special thanks, of course, to Krishna Das and Jana Priya, our heroes. Thank you. So I'd like to explain something about Prabhupada called the Hare Krishna movement. And but as a background to that, if we look at the Bhagavatam, which is our main text, and then of course the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which explains about Lord Chaitanya, well, you see it very clearly, you see it actually explicitly in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that there are three sections, which are called Adi Leela, which means the beginning pastimes, and then Madhya, which Leela, the middle pastimes, and then Antya Leela, which in Sanskrit means the final pastimes. And so what you see in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes is that the Adi Leela, or the first pastimes, are actually in one sense the most intimate in the sense of a spiritual community. Lord Chaitanya, of course, then he's known as Nimai Pandit. He's, hometown boy. And so he's engaged with people who are his friends and his family. It's interesting, when I went away to Berkeley and the end of 69, 1970, I was in the middle of all that stuff in Berkeley. I mean, not that I was the cause of all that mischief, but I was in the middle of it. And so I was going to say that, I just lost my train of thought, that, well, that's of course where I first saw Prabhupada. But the movement then sort of began to grow in the Bay Area, of course, in New York, and then the Bay Area, San Francisco, and then also in Berkeley. And the whole mood was, of course, it was not only political revolution, but it was also cultural revolution. And in a sense, Prabhupada sort of rode that wave. And basically, he just told us, that's not the revolution, this is the revolution. And so we were already eager and enthusiastic to change the world for the better in the name of justice and love and peace and all of that. And Prabhupada just said, that's all good, but you're actually not doing it the right way. And as we see that that sort of political attempts to bring, so to speak, to establish heaven on earth, have this fatal flaw, and that is because they're in the mode of passion, they love some people and hate other people. And of course, all this, I mean, the Bhagavad Gita gives us the greatest sociology. It's not just theology. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 20 through 22, Krishna describes jnanam, or knowledge, in these three modes of nature: in goodness, which is peaceful and selfless and virtuous, and then in passion, which is selfish and just selfish and vain, and then in ignorance, which you sort of just get everything wrong. Sarvartan viparitam, everything, you get everything backwards. And so what's interesting is that there's obviously a variety in this world. There are different genders, different races, different species, different ages, different, even among people of the same race, same species, race, and gender, people have very different personalities, and sometimes they quarrel or fight with each other, or do worse things to each other. And so there's so much strife and conflict in this world, differences. But Krishna says that in the mode of goodness, which is sattva, it's very interesting because sat, the word sat in Sanskrit is the present participle of the verb to be, so it means being. Participle is a verb which can function as a noun. Like I can say, I am being technical, so there's just a present participle, or I can say a living being. Anyway, before you ask for a refund, I'm not going to spend the whole night on grammar. But so, twa in Sanskrit, I mean, there's Sanskrit all over the place in English if you know where to look for it. So this ending twa, which we have in English is ty, like felicity, or poverty. It means the state of something. And so sattva, which is the word often translated goodness, it means the state of real existence, the state of true being, sattvam. And so, so in goodness, you see all the differences, you see the variety, but you also see, is there a Bhagavad Gita in the house? She's a Hare Krishna, she's gonna try to sell it to me.
Donation.
Thank you. Panchalita, she's my true daughter, Panchali. So, chapter 18, text 20. Krishna says, Sarva Bhuteshu, in all creatures, in all beings. I explain this elaborately in the Gita guide. The word Bhuta means sort of a soul that's somehow in a material body in this world. So Sarva Bhuteshu, among all beings or within all beings, that understanding, here jnana, which we still have in some forms in English, like the word agnostic, gnostic, which means like knowledge, that's just jnana through the Greek. So that knowledge which allows you to see one unperishing existence or one unperishing state in all living beings, avibhaktam, vibhakteshu, undivided among all the divided things. So we're divided in so many ways, like I said, race, gender, species, age, viewpoints, and I mean, there's so many things that divide people. And so that's the vibhakteshu, among all the divided creatures. If you can see there's one eternal state, even in all those apparently opposing communities and people, Tadjnana, that worldview, because here the word jnana, Krishna is really using it in a way that we would call worldview. And so, because there's these two ways of knowing, one is jnanam, which is sort of the big picture. What's your big picture? How do you see? What's your worldview? And then there's buddhi, which is analytic intelligence, which means you sort of separate things into all their different parts, and then you analyze things by breaking them into parts. And so those are two ways of knowledge. And now, of course, with science, we kind of have the Humpty Dumpty syndrome, that they've sort of divided everything up into these little subatomic particles, but they have no idea how to put them all back together and what reality is. So that knowledge, you see the differences, but you see that within every creature, there's the same spiritual nature, more or less developed. But still, there's a oneness. Now, in contrast to that knowledge in the mode of passion, Prithaktvena tujat jnanam, nana bhavan pritagvidhan veti, sarveshu bhuteshu tad jnanam vidhi rajasam. So, essentially what this is saying is, if you see the differences as just fundamental, and by fundamental it means like there's no more basic level. People are just different. People are just different. And, however you divide them by all the different bodily categories, people are just different. And that's passion. So that's why there are not ultimately political solutions. A political activity can be engaged to express a spiritual understanding. It's not that a devotee can never get involved in making the world better, but if it's based on a passionate, political, or mundane understanding of the world, all they can ever do is just divide people, and which is exactly what's happened to this country. In the name of saving the country, they're disintegrating it. And so, but unless you have that goodness You can't see the oneness. You just see this person is different from me, politically, racially, I mean, whatever. People, have innumerable things to stupidly quarrel over. But you can take oneness, because see the oneness inside all, for example, the fact, okay, this is an animal, but it's also a soul, as much as I am. Ultimately, I'm no better than this other creature, whether it's an ant or whether it's a sage or whatever it is, because inside that body is the same quality of soul that's inside of me. And so that was what Prabhupada revealed to us. That's what Prabhupada revealed to us, that if you want to really do something useful with your life or make the world a better place, you need this knowledge. And so we joined the Hare Krishna movement, and I sometimes jokingly call it the cult of Chaitanya, because Prabhupada used that term. There's an old sort of Victorian use of the word cult, which is related to the word culture or cultivation. So like the cult, so Robert, you say the cult of Chaitanya, so I kind of use that term somewhat jokingly. So what I'm hoping, and what Krishnas and Janapriya are doing so well, and really providing real leadership to our Krishna West and North America, and of course there are other leaders also, but the program here is special. Is sort of reviving that spirit. It's as well, the earliest person that talked about this, I think, was Plato. He talked about how political extremes generate their opposites. Like he said, tyranny leads to anarchy, and anarchy leads to tyranny. And then, of course, Galileo, among his other pastimes, was really into pendulums, which was revolutionary at the time. I mean, don't take for granted the humble pendulum. And so, because it really, I mean, the pendulum, it actually says something very important about the way nature works in this world. And then, of course, and Newton, around that time, Newton also, that's his third law. Newton's third law is that every force in the universe generates an equal and opposite force. And then the German philosopher Hegel took this concept and applied it to human history in his dialectic, thesis, antithesis, and so on. And so it kind of, things work that way. So, but again, we have to know how to stop in the middle. So we don't want to be, as a Hare Krishna movement, we don't want to be overbearing. We don't want to just sort of harass people to sell them things. But at the same time, we don't want to become overly sedate. We don't want to become so sedate that we're kind of irrelevant to history. So the way I put it sometimes is that in the old days, in the early days of the Hare Rakam Sakam Hare Krishna movement, where we actually basically made the streets and airports of America unsafe for pedestrians. Anyway, because we were all very young and passionate, and there were no elders in the Hare Krishna movement. Actually, they've noticed if you study any advanced mammal, whether it's humans or gorillas or elephants, if they're somehow cut off from their elders, their behavior tends to become sort of uncontrolled and even self-destructive or harmful to others. And so in a sense, the Hare Krishna movement, sort of a brutally frank analysis of what we were doing back then. I mean, we were very sincere. We were really, really sincere. But at the same time, I mean, when I was 23 years old, I became a senior leader. And watch out. So, so basically, most of the leadership of the Hare Krishna movement had not yet developed a prefrontal cortex. was sort of a neurological way to look at it. But there was extraordinary sincerity. There was extraordinary sincerity and willingness just to give everything to Krishna and to give everything for the benefit of the world. So then ISKCON became much more mature, but it, in a sense, it went to the opposite extreme, where it was very mature but very sedate and sort of centered more on rituals and just being really nice. And I mean, we should be nice, but so the dialectic has to move forward to the synthesis. And so that's really what Krishna West, it's maintaining, preserving the maturity and just maturity, just being nice people and not harassing other people and not being fanatical and all that, but at the same time being revolutionary. I mean, there is a mature way to be revolutionary and to really change the world. And I think Krishna West, more than anything I've seen, really embodies that spirit. It's interesting how, well, anyway, so many things I could say. I do remember why I brought up Berkeley, because when I brought up Berkeley, when I joined the temple in Berkeley, it's just about 20 of us, about 10 men and 10 women. We were all young, and it was like here. It was really like a family. And there was no, it was very personal. It was very much a community. Oh, I know I was going to say also, it's all coming back now, flooding back into my memory. When I went up to Berkeley, I took this Sociology 1 class with this, I still remember the professor's name, young guy from New York, not sure, like a beatnik with a beard and high top tennis shoes. And he looked just like Frank Zappa. And anyway, in that sociology class, one of the first things we learned is the German jargon, Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. If you know German, Gemeinschaft means community and Gesellschaft means society. And so it was very much a like a community. It was very personal. It was very, very personal, and everyone was like, it was really like a spiritual family, like here. It was very much like a spiritual family, and but the whole movement was like that. I mean, all around the world, so that you could go anywhere, whether it was in London or Boston, or you go anywhere, and it was your family, and people treated you like family, and it was really a wonderful time. And with that, there was incredible solidarity, and which was all focused on just helping the world. So it was a very beautiful time. It was very wonderful. And anyway, I won't go into the whole history, this happened and that happened. And but now, with Krishna West, we actually have an opportunity to revive that mood. And so I mentioned, getting back, just to show you that haven't reached an age where I can't remember what I said 10 minutes ago. I'm going to prove that's not true. I was mentioning like the Chaitanya Charitamrita with the Adi Leela because it was like in these intimate pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, that's what ISKCON was like. Everything was family. Everything was friendly. There was no sexism. There was no. And then if you look at Krishna Leela, you find the same thing. Because in the first stage of Krishna's pastimes, as you see in the Krishna book, that book that George Harrison again sponsored, paid for to publish Prabhupada's Krishna book. And in the first stage, like Lord Chaitanya, Adi Leela, he's with his friends, he's with his family. It's very intimate, it's very personal. And that's Krishna in Vrindavan. And then in the second stage, Lord Chaitanya goes out to preach and to establish a great movement. And similarly, Krishna leaves Vrindavan and he goes out to get rid of these demonic forces that were destroying the earth. And then finally, Lord Chaitanya retired to Jagannath Puri and engaged in very intimate realizations. And Krishna at a certain point stopped personally fighting the demons and so on, and he empowered his devotees like the Pandavas, like Arjuna. And so, but it's very interesting. If you study Indian cultural history, what you find is that it's Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan that overwhelmingly attracted and inspired South Asia. Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And so in the same way, being here with all of you, it reminds me of what it was like back then. It was something so beautiful and Krishna conscious. And just chanting Hare Krishna with you. I always remember, as an analogy, when I first started learning about Krishna consciousness, I'd seen the devotees in Berkeley, and they didn't know much about it, but they told me what they knew. So then when I went down to LA for the summer, there was a really nice temple in Los Angeles on La Cienega Boulevard, and I visited there, and I didn't know it actually, but Prabhupada was living a few blocks from me. They'd rented a house for him. Doing the Krishna book, by the way. But when I went there, it was just a beautiful atmosphere. And then eventually I went back to Berkeley and actually joined the movement there. But okay, this is the point. Because so many things come in mind. When I first started going to the temple in LA, and I had lots of friends, I was sociable. So I had lots of friends in LA. And it's funny because when I went to Berkeley, like dozens of my friends went to Berkeley also. So, we were all home for the summer from Hamilton High School. Honk if you love Hammy High. So, so I was telling my friends about Krishna. And what's interesting is that there was no resistance because I wasn't trying to institutionalize them. I wasn't overbearing. I wasn't demanding. I was just inspired. It's like, let's say you see a movie and just think, wow, that's a fantastic movie. And you just make your friends see it. And it's well known in Hollywood that, let's say a big movie's coming out, they can spend literally $100 million or $200 million just on promotion. And the movie can crash and burn after like the second week. Because really what makes a movie is word of mouth. If the first group of people, the early adapter, if the first group goes and sees it and they tell their friends, you have to see this movie, that's what actually makes a blockbuster. And all the advertising can do is get a lot of people in for the first weekend. But if in that first weekend, if people are telling their friends, yeah, it's okay, you can see it if you want, then that $200 million. In fact, I remember The Prince of Persia was a movie where they actually spent $200 million on promotion. You see what we think about in Los Angeles. They spent $200 million on promotion and the movie just totally flopped. So I was telling my friends, and actually one of them is now an ISKCON guru, a Mahatma from my neighborhood. But there was no resistance. Not that they all joined the Hare Krishna movement, but no one felt that I was proselytizing. No one felt that I was browbeating them or trying to convert them to something, which I wasn't. It was simply that I had this extraordinary experience and I wanted to share it with them. They might have, tried to convince me to take this new form of LSD or something, but, and so I think that's really what it means to spread the Hare Krishna movement. It means that we are so excited, we are so happy and thrilled because with a serious practice of Krishna consciousness, we are actually, to use, now I'm going to date myself, expanding our consciousness. That was the old thing, back then. It's not just that, okay, I now believe in something and I'll even go so far as to join something. And then, okay, now it's interesting because when I personally joined the cult of Chaitanya, when I personally joined, I mean, I understood that, I mean, the only reason I know about it is because some people, because there's an institution. If there had not have been some type of organization, I never would have heard about it. Books would never have been printed. And so, but I never thought that the essence of my life as a devotee was institutional. I felt that it's a duty I have, and it's a sacred duty. It's a sacred duty to reciprocate with the people that, helped me to understand this. And so I took it very seriously, and as a debt to Prabhupada, because Prabhupada got on the boat and he came here to America. And God only knows where I would be right now. I mean, perhaps not even alive in this body. I mean, I don't know what would have become of me if Prabhupada had not come. And so but I always knew that it's really my personal relationship with Krishna and with Prabhupada who brought Krishna, and with other people who actually are trying to love Krishna. It's a spiritual family. And I understood perfectly as a historian, as someone who has seriously studied history and social science, that it's much better for the world that there be a Hare Krishna movement. And that it would be selfish of me to indulge my own, how should I put it, lack of interest in institutions. I was not a joiner. I mean, the Hare Krishna movement is actually the first thing I ever really joined. You know, when you're a kid, your parents tell you, okay, you're going here, you got to do this. But in terms of actually voluntarily joining something, I only joined one thing my whole life, which was Prabhupada's mission. So I was very much an individualist, and I really valued and still value my freedom. And I was able to do Krishna West because I thought, I'm doing all this because I'm pursuing the truth. Not because I just, for some psychological need of my own, I need to be in an institution. Because I never felt I needed to be institutionalized. So it's a noble, to me, it's a duty. It's a noble duty. It's being a gentleman. It's being grateful to Prabhupada because the world needs us. And the example I could give is that, well, take the Pope. I mean, recently a Pope passed away. By the way, the Pope who just passed away he offered what we call obeisances, sort of our word. He bowed to Prabhupada because he's from Argentina and he had very close friends who were devotees. And so, I mean, they stuffed him with prasadam and even came to see Prabhupada. So someone, I think it was in Dallas, he came in and offered respects to Prabhupada, the Pope had just passed away. But the point now we've got a Chicago Pope. So, honk if you like the Chicago Pope. So, but the point I want to make is that actually around the time that Lord Chaitanya appeared in this world, there was a Protestant revolution in Europe with Martin Luther. Got to be careful what I say because David was born a Lutheran family. And actually, I mean, if you know history, you can see how Krishna completely changed Western culture when Lord Chaitanya was here. The Western world dramatically changed in many ways so that there could be an international society for Krishna consciousness without all of us being burned at the stake. But I can explain to you briefly how the world, actually the Western world especially, totally transformed during the time Lord Chaitanya was here. But so now there are many, many Protestant churches, there's dozens and dozens of them. But the point is, how many people can name the leader, like who at the present time is the leader of the Southern Baptist Convention, or the Methodist Church, or the Presbyterian Church? Does anyone here know? But everyone knows who the Pope is. And so that's sort of a socio-historical observation, that there's something very powerful in somehow or other keeping things together, keeping Prabhupada's mission together. And so if I am thinking selflessly, in other words, not indulging my own, if I indulge my own propensities, God only knows what I've been. So, but because that's what it means to surrender to Krishna. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I think it goes even farther back than him. He cited it in Sanskrit, it's anukulyasya sankalpa, which is translated as accepting what is favorable for Krishna's service. Like, that might not be what I would like, but it is good for Krishna. And that's what it means to love someone. It's like if parents have a child. You know, maybe, okay, we would like to go here, do that, but we have to think of our children. I mean, I was fortunate, I'm sure many of you were, I had very good parents, and so they would basically move to school districts. You know, that was the big thing. You have to move somewhere where our children can go to a good school. I mean, that's what good parents do. That's what loving parents do. They put their children first. And parents who put themselves first are generally not good parents. And so in the same way, like, what does it mean to surrender to Krishna? It's very simple. It means if something is good for Krishna, it's good for the world. Everyone is part of Krishna. It's simply not possible that, well, this pleases Krishna, but it's not good for the world. That's not possible. Because Krishna, because of his infinite mercy and his infinite love for us, he wants what's best for us. And so if something is pleasing to Krishna, it's because it's good for the world, not because Krishna is whimsical or, you know, might makes right. Okay, you know, I'm all powerful, so this is the way it's going to go down. If it's not like that, you know, then that's just, you know, what foolish people in this world do. So it's just better for the world. The only real shot the world has, if it has any hope, is that there be a united, powerful movement. And societies, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they expect or want a society to be a community. There are many communities in the Hare Krishna movement that it would be, what's that old saying? A tough row to hoe for me. I mean, I don't think I'd last more than 24 hours. With all due respect, it wouldn't work for me. But that was Prabhupada's genius, that he created a society and not just because if there's a community and you kind of don't really fit in with the people, then that's it, game over. But ISKCON's not a community. Prabhupada didn't call it IMCON. I mean, no, IK. Wait, what am I thinking? Oh, the M in community. Okay, faking myself out here. It's a society. Yeah, IKCON, that would be ICKCON. IKCON, icky. It would. So, and Prabhupada, I remember there was this hit song when I was a kid. I think it must have been 11 or 12. To know him is to love him, by the Teddy Bears. To know him. Oh my God. We used to make that a requirement for Krishna West. Anyway, the words are, to know him is to love him. It's a beautiful song. So Prabhupada fought for your right to be yourself within his movement. There are many, many letters from Prabhupada. It's just like, good parents, they don't let an older child bully the younger children. And that's exactly what Prabhupada did. He didn't allow even people that were big leaders in the movement, had all this power, more power than they really had maturity, but he really fought for everyone's right within his movement to be themselves. And of course, there are common denominators. Otherwise, it's not a movement, it's just chaos. And so there are things that bind us all together. And what really, in a sense, binds us all together is Krishna consciousness as taught by Prabhupada. So, so here there's a beautiful community. It's, and And it's really, I'd like to say something more about in praise of this community, and that is it's of great historical importance. It's of historical importance because every great revolution, I don't know if you're allowed to say that word anymore. When I was young, that was like, that was a very positive word. Now it may just sound like someone making a big mess. But let's say every great step forward in history, it started with a few people in an incense smoke-filled room. Just, so this community here, which Krishnas and Janapriya have created out of their devotion and sincerity, is actually of great historical importance. And I say that as a historian. And it's, Prabhupada used to use the word foothold. He'd say, like, we have a foothold. And so that's what Prabhupada would say about this project. It gives Krishna West a foothold in North America. And so, all of you actually are of historical significance. It's like, for example, I did quite a bit of study of what they call generally early Christianity, which is basically the world that Jesus was born into, the world in which he operated, and then the sort of the immediate aftermath, like what was going on. And then you trace how the Christianity sort of developed in I better not get into that now, how it evolved in a certain way to great extent because of historical circumstances. So, but the point I was going to make is that scholars would just give anything to have more, if they could have primary sources. I mean, it's well known that because Jesus, according to the book of Acts of the Apostles, all of the direct followers of Jesus who were actually like traveling around with him, they were actually illiterate peasants. So no one really wrote anything. And, telephone game. But anyway, but I mean, if we had some document, which, let's even like second generation, which we do in a sense, Paul, anyway. So, but it's fascinating. Historians, I mean, all the greatest historians in the world and all the best universities, it's like a treasure if they can find something written by or some information about people who are in your position. So I'm looking at it actually as a historian. So what you are doing here is of great historical significance. And 500 years from now and 1,000 years from now, what you are doing here will be considered to be, extremely important for historians. So I think being able to see yourself, to find yourself within history and to understand the role that you are playing in history, it gives, in this case, it gives tremendous inspiration. And it makes us realize the absolute necessity of our acting in a noble way. Because we can see in the early days of so many religions that people who weren't so noble kind of got it off track and never really got back on track. That's another story. So, so somehow or other, I mean, Krishna is giving all of you and me, I include myself, this extraordinary opportunity, because there are periods in history where there's really nothing you can do that matters that much, just because of the way history is proceeding at a particular time. And there are other times in history where people that step forward and really devote themselves can actually play a major role in the world. And that's the situation we're in here. So I gave a talk sponsored by the North American RGB, that's a regional governing body, and on competition. And, well, Krishnadas, you'll totally understand this. I mean, imagine, let's say, you're a little younger, you go down to the court, or you go down to the, whatever, and someone's in charge says, okay, everyone gets a participation trophy, and there's no winners and no losers. I mean, you're obviously going to leave, right? And so it's just, that's not sports. That's just, I don't know what it is. Nursery school? So, that story where in Prabhupada sent me to Latin America, and just by Krishna's mercy, really, right, I was just the right guy in the right place at the right time. But it just exploded, boomed. We opened dozens of temples, and literally hundreds, if not thousands, of devotees came and printed millions of books. And that was, I was just like 25 years old, 26, 27. But so anyway, I had a godbrother, disciple of Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna, who was a great devotee, just one of the most important devotees in ISKCON history. And he passed away in an automobile accident, actually going from Mayapur to Calcutta in 2001. But, Nritya Kishore is a disciple of Tamal Krishna. Hey, Nritya. She is a wonderful devotee and a disciple of a wonderful guru. Nritya Kishore is visiting us. It wouldn't be fitting if I didn't embarrass her, because I always do that. But she's a wonderful devotee. And she's doing a program in Dallas. So Tamal Krishna, who was like this, he could have been this, CEO of, I don't know, like General Motors or something, or Apple. He's really a manager. And so he organized this book distribution party, and they kept winning the world championship. Because back in those days, we'd go out and sell books and sort of making, the streets of major Western cities unsafe for pedestrian traffic anyway. So he would always win. And back in those days, the December marathon, as we called it, it was like the Super Bowl, the World Cup, the World Series, the NBA Finals, like everything rolled into one. And they'd always won, and so then my zone it just grew explosively in Latin America. And so we actually won that marathon. And the first time we'd ever beaten the Radha Damodar party. And so then it just so happened that Tamal Krishna Goswami and myself, we both, right after that, around New Year's, we both flew to Los Angeles to see Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada was walking with us. I was on one side of Prabhupada and Tamal was on the other side. We were walking at the Palisades Park in Santa Monica, if you know what that is, beautiful park. And Prabhupada was he was just so happy because so many books had gone out to so many suffering souls. And so he was really, really happy. And so, Prabhupada had his own sort of Victorian English, but he kind of said, in his own way, turned to Tamal and said, so, he beat you. You're going to take that? What are you going to do about it? That's kind of what he was saying, but, it was Prabhupada. And so we were all laughing because, we were a family. And it's like if you have a big, extended family outing at the park and there's three-legged races and water balloon, throwing water balloons. It's like, you're competing, but ultimately it's a loving family. You're just having fun, but you're competing. And so then Prabhupada, then he stopped, and I'll never forget this. There's things that Prabhupada said went into my heart, and I can see it as if I'm there right now. And he simply said 4 words, which I never forgot. He said, I like this competition. And what he meant by this competition is that, we were like loving brothers. We had a great relationship. And because of the competition, we probably did 10 or 20 times more than we would have done because we really had that spirit. So it wasn't mundane. It wasn't mundane. It wasn't. So in that sense, Krishna West. We should get bumper stickers that say honk if you like Krishna West. go to some conservative temple, nobody's honking. But anyway, so just complete silence. Gotta have a sense of humor, right? But I think, I personally feel that Krishna West is the best hope for the world right now. And by that, I don't mean myself. That would be a little too narcissistic even for me. But I mean Krishna West because it really came from Krishna. Krishna actually even named it. Some people, they get triggered just by the name Krishna West. But actually, it actually came from Krishna. So, I mean, we don't want to become just, what's the word, like mercenary, or just it's all about the numbers, statistics, and forget that it's really about a spiritual family. It's really about building wonderful relationships, which Janapriya and Krishnas are doing so in such an exemplary way. And so, but there's a certain, like I said, let's say there's a big family outing, extended family, and they have like a 3-legged race, or they have, throwing like water balloons. I mean, everyone's really into it, and it's fun, and it's in no way diminishes the love everyone has for each other. So, because I really think that Krishna West is the best hope right now, actually for the planet. And I don't mean me, I mean Krishna West, because Prabhupada told me so many times, we were together just privately, that his whole, and he also said at other times, it wasn't like some secret knowledge only I had, that Prabhupada's whole strategy for saving this planet was to make his movement work in America and beyond that, even just in the Western world. Because, whether you like the West or hate the West or whatever, the fact that the West is dominant now, it's just a fact. We have to work with the facts. So, and I think Krishna West is really the best hope to try to rebuild a very powerful Western mission that can really, because, I mean, the real question is not why are we always knew politicians were kind of creepy, but we didn't know they were that creepy. So the real question is not why are the politicians such fools? Because whoever said politicians were going to save this planet? I mean, that's just not what politicians do. They don't save planets. The real question is, where are the devotees? And of course here, devotees showed up in this wonderful program. So I think we should really have that sense of history, that sense that no pressure. And actually it is no pressure because we're becoming instruments of Krishna. And this last thing I'll say, and then I'll open it up for large scale donations. So the last, I hope you know I'm kidding. I had this, just one more story, this wonderful, wonderful moment I had with Prabhupada. I was it was at Rancho Park in Los Angeles. It's funny, I used to talk about, like, remember they used to have tapes, like you'd record on a tape, and then if you record over, it erase what was. Do you know that? I mean, those of you who are young, there used to be tapes. So Prabhupada used to walk at Rancho Park, and that's where I played Little League Baseball. And that's where I, took swimming lessons. And that was our neighborhood park. It's a beautiful area. And so in Los Angeles, it's still a very beautiful area. So one time we were walking with Prabhupada over my Little League Baseball diamonds. That was a really amazing experience. And So we got to a certain point. I mean, you just see it very clearly in my mind. And Prabhupada stopped. Sometimes he would, when he was walking, he would stop, sort of put his cane down because he really wanted to make a point. And he said, he was quoting that powerful verse from chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna, actually, I'll read it for you. If I can find it really. It's in chapter 11. I think there's a list of the verses.
I think it's 33.
Oh, great. If you're right, you get a prize. Very good. Very good.
Thanks, Maharaj.
So Krishna says, this is such a powerful verse, and this is the verse Prabhupada quoted to us, and he was pleading with us to take this seriously. And so hopefully I can be Prabhupada's instrument, and you can hear Prabhupada's voice in this. Tasmat, therefore. And of course, whenever a word starts with therefore, you got to go back to the previous statement. Like, therefore, meaning therefore what? So the previous verse, Krishna says that time I am, destroyer of the worlds. And this is all, Krishna says this is all predestined because that's why I came to this world. I came to this planet to do certain things, and they are going to happen. And so then Krishna says in 11:33, tasmat, therefore. Tasmat literally in Sanskrit means from that, in the sense of thus or therefore. Tvam, you, uttishta, stand, literally stand up. It's still English, we have the same word in English. In Sanskrit, uttishta, ut is just up. And sta is just stand. Upstand, uttishta. So in other words, arise, you stand up. Just show labaswa and take the glory. Take the glory. Jitwa shatrun, conquering the enemies. And of course, in this age, the enemies are just ignorance. And bhunksva rajam samritam, and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. So of course, we don't want a political kingdom, but we want a spiritual kingdom on earth so that everyone can be happy and then liberated. And so then, and these are the words that Prabhupada quoted especially. He said, Krishna said, Maya vaite nihata purvameva. By me alone, Maya eva, by me alone, all of these warriors who are against justice, who are against peace in the world, he said, they have already been slain by me alone. It's already done. Nimitta matram bhava, Savyasachan, or Arjun, just be the instrument. If you know your fourfold Aristotelian causality, you know, it's just like, for example, let's say you cut a piece of bread with a knife. The knife is the instrumental cause. You can't slice bread if you haven't got something to slice it with. And yet the real person behind it is the person who actually took the knife and cuts the bread. And so when Krishna says to Arjuna, nimitta matram, just be the instrumental cause, in other words, because I'm doing it, I will do it through you. If that's what you want to do with your life, if you want to really serve me, if you want to really help other people, I will act through you. And what really struck me when we were with Prabhupada standing there, actually in the very exact spot where our synagogue once had a picnic. So as we were standing there, Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya is going to save this planet. It's already destined. So, but he will give you the credit. He will give you the credit because he loves us. We are his children. He will give you the credit. So why don't you take the credit? If you don't, someone else will take the credit, but why don't you take it? And so just as Prabhupada, sort of Prabhupada was an incredible cook and actually the best musician on the harmonium and drum. I mean, there was no one as good as him on the mridanga and the harmonium. There was just no one that good. And so Prabhupada said that, so it's just like, I mean, that's what a loving parent wants to do, give credit to the children. Like the child does something, which is obviously not as, perhaps didn't do it as well as the parent could do it, but the parent, a loving parent feels more pleasure that the child has done this, praising the child, and it's genuine out of love, isn't it? It's a greater pleasure for the parents to see the children succeeding. And so Krishna, and what I'm going to say, so Prabhupada, he was a great cook, and so he kind of bribed us with this prashadam. I mean, I wasn't in the New York crowd. That was like the first wave. I was in the second wave on the West Coast and proud. So, but anyway, so Prabhupada, just as he made this delicious prasadam to wean us off material food. So in the same way, Krishna is saying that I love you. You are my eternal children, and I want to give you the credit. And so Prabhupada is really Lord Chaitanya speaking through Prabhupada, pleading with us to take the glory, to take the credit. And then saying, if you don't do it, someone else will do it. So, so that's really, I'll just sort of end with that I think it's really powerful if we can see ourselves within history and understand the grave importance of what we're doing and understand that really Krishna will do it, but we have to volunteer. We have to beg Krishna, please let me be your instrument. And it absolutely doesn't matter what body type you have. You know, it doesn't matter how, you know, your age, your gender, it doesn't matter what your SAT score was. The point is that, there was a great song written by Curtis Mayfield, the Impressions of the 60s, called People Get Ready. People get ready, there's a train to Jordan, picking up passengers from coast. Anyway, and there's room for all among those who love the most. And so it's the idea of a train, hear the diesels humming. You don't need no ticket, you just get on board. And so it's a very beautiful song, People Get Ready, gospel song, but it's actually all those great singers, even from Motown, in this case, the Impressions, certainly Aretha Franklin, they all came out of the churches. They all came out of the churches. They were first inspired by gospel music. But anyway, so I'd like to thank everyone here. I mean, I'm personally inspired by what you're all doing here under the guidance of Krishnadas and Janapriya. And yeah, we have to dream big. It's one of the few things left in this country that don't cost anything. So, yeah, we should really, and of course, knowing that it depends on Krishna. So it's not the pressure. You're not taking upon yourself the pressure that I have to do all these things. How can I do it? Rather, it's intensely begging Krishna, please make me your instrument. Please accept me. Please work through me for the good of the world. So there's no pressure on you to do anything. The only pressure on you is just to somehow try to get Krishna's mercy, which is pressure for us to up our game in terms of our practice of bhakti yoga. So it's our relationship with Krishna, where we are praying to Krishna, please empower me, please work through me, so that we can do something wonderful. And Prabhupada once said, I remember that, what did he say? He said, I remember that, he said, what is the use of your being Americans if you don't do something wonderful? So, any questions on these points? Yes.
Hi,
Hi.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for the lecture. My question is about the knowledge of Srila Prabhupada. And so for someone like myself, I hear from, people who've been in contact with him. And my question is about the commentaries and how he would produce the commentaries. So right now, just to give you some context, I'm reading Canto 3, Chapter 11. And the amount of knowledge that a person needs to have to even comment on those verses is quite substantial. And then when you take that, it's all like science-based, it's about the atom and all that. And then you take the Gita, and it's also, just so deep and so rich in a completely different way. And to have that body of knowledge that he had within his lifetime. And my question is that when he was producing the commentaries, was it just straight from the heart, or was there
Prabhupada was just describing what he was seeing. It wasn't theoretical. It wasn't just an exercise in sort of theoretical theology. Prabhupada was a self-realized soul. And I remember being around Prabhupada. I mean, you see the pictures, that's one thing, but when I was with Prabhupada, he didn't look like a human. I mean, he obviously he had a human body so that he could communicate with us. But I remember having the experience many times where, especially when Prabhupada was speaking on something very grave, that I remember one time I was in his room in Los Angeles and I could see Krishna kind of looking at me through Prabhupada's eyes. And I remember many times we'd go to receive Prabhupada at the airport in Los Angeles. Prabhupada liked gardenias, so they'd always get him like these big floor-length gardenia garlands. And I'd always be the first one to put the garland on Prabhupada. And I also would actually sneak into the jetway because I wanted to be the first to see Prabhupada. And I was just a young guy then, and there was no airport security then. You could just go to the boarding gate, and they kept telling me you can't go on the jetway, and I was somehow managed. But I remember many times, I can see it now in my mind, when Prabhupada would come through the jetway, and often he'd hold up his bead bag like to greet us. And then I'd kind of, give the high sign to the devotees. There were hundreds and hundreds of devotees then, and then this kirtan would just explode. And, but I can just see Prabhupada walking down the jetway into the terminal, and it was obvious there were two people coming. It was Prabhupada and Krishna. And there's actually a Bhagavatam verse about that, where Vidura, there's this very poignant scene, it always kind of brings me to tears, where Vidura was always the one that saved the Pandavas. He was their loving uncle. When everyone around them was trying to assassinate them, he always saved them. And then he left. He went away and the battle of Kurukshetra took place. And then Yudhishthira was the emperor of the world. So then Vidura came back to the capital, Hastinapur. And there's this very, very moving scene where Vidura walks into the palace and the emperor sees him. And Yudhishthira says to him that, do you remember us? Like Yudhishthira, even though he's the emperor of the world, he feels so humble just to see Vidura, because, if when you were down and really, really down and in a terrible situation, if someone came forward and always was there for you, then later when you are successful, that person, you have a special love for that person. That was a person that was really there for me when no one else was. And so Yudhishthira said, you remember us, we're the... He took this very humble position. Then he said, Bhavad Vida, this beautiful verse, Bhavad Vida Bhagavata, devotees like you. And Prabhupada, the way Prabhupada translates that, saints of your caliber. So Bhavad Vida Bhagavata Tirtha Bhuta Swayam, you yourselves, you were traveling to places of pilgrimage, holy places, but you yourself are a holy place. Because tirti kurvanti tirtani, because persons, devotees like you, they make the holy places holy. That's literally what it means. That you make the holy places holy. Why? Swantakstena gadabrata. Because you carry within yourself Krishna. Krishna, you are, when you come, Krishna is coming within you. Because you're transparent, spiritually transparent. And so that's what it was like seeing Prabhupada. It was like, he was bringing Krishna, and you could see that Krishna was there. That Prabhupada was, Krishna's everywhere, but Prabhupada was bringing Krishna in a very powerful way that we could only experience in his presence. And so, so Prabhupada was just, in his purports, he was just writing what he was seeing. He's an enlightened soul, just an enlightened soul who was seeing everything Prabhupada says, he was seeing. The eternal soul, Krishna, the futility of material life. So, just one little anecdote. When I was 22 years old, and I was married, very good devotee, was married to a very good devotee, Ananga Manjari, and so then Prabhupada came to Gainesville. Actually, he flew into Jacksonville. There were no commercial flights to Gainesville back then. And so my wife stayed behind to get everything ready, because she really is the only one that knew what was going on in the temple. I was just giving classes. So then we picked up Prabhupada. And so when Prabhupada came through the jetway, so there was no, you could just go to the jetway. And there I was, 22 years old, and there was Prabhupada. And so of course I offered obeisance. I just didn't think that, well, Prabhupada has he had to take 2 flights to New York to Atlanta to Jacksonville, and then drive from Jacksonville about an hour and a half. Meanwhile, I was doing all my pious obeisances, and Prabhupada was just standing there. So when I stood up, he just looked at me and said, "Which way?" Prabhupada was like this perfect combination of just the facts, man. Just get down to business. At the same time, he was jovial. He had a great sense of humor. When he invited me to come and spend a month with him in Mayapur before the Gaur Purnima festival in 1976. And he was telling me jokes. About usually, Indian jokes about Indians. So it was just, Prabhupada was like, he was like the best friend you could ever have. And he did so many times more than anyone could ever do. And yet I never in my life saw him in a hurry. It's like the world had to move at his speed. And so, Prabhupada was, he was, what can I say? Everything you've heard, it was really true. It was really true. He was fearless. That was his name before he joined the movement. Actually, Prabhupada once told me privately that there was never a time when he didn't know Krishna. So that kind of resolved that issue for me. And he was actually fearless. I remember one time, 2 times. I remember one time we were walking at the Venice Beach in LA, where my mother used to take me when I was like, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. Just go to Venice, so right where my mother used to take me, my brother, that's where Prabhupada walked. So one time we were walking, so it was so funny, because we were all like little ducklings following Prabhupada. So, we'd walk on Venice Beach and then come back to the parking lot, and Prabhupada would just sort of stamp his feet to get the sand off. So then, the whole parampara was stamping their feet. Everyone was, it's like, dozens devotees, because that was, come on, it's bona fide. You have to stamp, it's bona fide to stamp your feet and get the sand off after you walk on the beach. And so, and then one time we were doing that, and then suddenly this huge, what do they call it, a Great Dane? This dog, it looked like a small horse. It was this huge dog, and it started barking at us. And there were all these big devotees. I mean, obviously I wasn't like the biggest devotee, I mean physically big. And everyone's just looking at everybody else, and Prabhupada was there, and so what do we do? Because this huge dog is barking. So then Prabhupada just went forward with his cane. Hut, hut. He chased the dog away. I mean, he really was fearless. I saw him do it again in New Vrindavan. We were walking on one of the ridges, as if there are non-ridge places to walk in New Vrindavan. But anyway, we were walking on the ridges there, and same thing, this dog just kept barking, and then Prabhupada chased it away. This kid. Yeah, Prabhupada was just, when you become Krishna, it's funny because, in a sense, because of the etiquette, when someone is, let's say, considered an advanced devotee or guru, there's a certain veneration or certain formality. And so, and of course, that's good to the extent that without that one might, let's say, act inappropriately. But the thing about Prabhupada is he was, for all of our awe and reverence, he was more personal than we were. When you advance in Krishna consciousness, you don't sort of rise to this stage where you're just sort of like this glowing icon or something. I mean, actually, as one becomes more Krishna conscious, one becomes more personal, more loving. I mean, one story with Prabhupada, he was back in the good old days, or when we would just go out in the street and like chant Hare Krishna in the street. We were all kids, 8, 10 hours a day we were in the street just chanting. And so I used to play the drum and lead kirtan sometimes. So those of us who would play the drum, that was we would have to put tape on our fingers, because you play a drum with your fingers, for 8 hours, you're gonna basically skin yourself alive. So one time Prabhupada was walking by and he saw that I had this tape in my fingers. And so he just stopped. And he was really concerned. He said, "What is that?" Just like when you're a kid, if your mother saw that you had tape, a Band-Aid, she'd say, "What happened?" And so Prabhupada really wanted to know, what's wrong? Why do you have a Band-Aid on your fingers? He really cared. I saw Prabhupada, and this in 1970. He became very disturbed and angry because he saw, looking out from his quarters, he saw a little child, son of a devotee, this little child run out in the street. And Prabhupada reacted the same way your mother or father would have reacted, when you were a little kid. And so he was talking to the mother, who was kind of a little hippie-witted, and she was sort of trying to give some excuse, and Prabhupada was having none of it. He said no, he was really upset that the child had run into the street. So Prabhupada, it's not that he's on a platform where he's above all kinds of feelings. He certainly is above all material feelings, but he was more personal than we were. Because, you can be very personal in material life, but it's sort of conditioning. It's based on attachment, or it's, whatever, family attachment or nationalism, whatever. But when you become a pure soul, you develop a love and a concern for others, which is not based on the body. It's not about it's because you see that person's a soul, and that person's part of the one. There's only one family in all the universes. It's the family of God. And Prabhupada is very much like that. Just one more little story about Prabhupada. These are stories which are not in the books, perhaps, but I was personally there. In New Vrindavan in 1972, we had the biggest Hare Krishna festival in the history of ISKCON in the Western world at that point, for Janmashtami and Vyas Puja, 1972. And I was staying in the house where Prabhupada was staying. So a New York Times reporter came, sort of young guy, to do a story for the Times. And he was kind of asking these predictable questions. So what about this? What about that? And I was sitting right next to Prabhupada, and it was just amazing because he kind of, how should I put it? He wasn't going to allow that reporter to sort of set the tone for the conversation. And he just told him, but because Prabhupada was pure, he could do these things because he had no envy. He had no envy. He was pure. And so even if he was heavy, it didn't offend people because there was no actual envy. There was no aggression. It was just pure spiritual feeling. And so basically he was telling the New York Times reporter, why aren't you surrendering to God? Why aren't you surrendering to Krishna? But he said it in a way, and suddenly I could see before my eyes that Prabhupada wasn't seeing a New York Times reporter. He was seeing an eternal soul who had left Krishna. And he just brought the whole discussion up that platform. The reporter was kind of like, couldn't really give a good reason why he wasn't surrendering to Krishna. But Prabhupada was fearless. He was pure, free of envy, seeing Krishna. I could see that he was seeing Krishna. Okay, last thing. When I went down to LA to be initiated in early 1970, and is that David? My God, I thought that was you. It's my co-conspirator for the Krishna West website. It's nice. It's really nice you're here. So when I joined the movement, Krishna gave me all these introductory offers. Krishna just revealed to me directly that Prabhupada is seeing me directly. I don't know how to explain that. I just was a poster project. Krishna just told me that. And then when I was I went down to be initiated, and then Prabhupada was coming that evening. I don't know if that was the evening of the initiation, or that might have just been just to give a lecture. But, and I was almost fainting. I couldn't believe it, that I was going to see a pure devotee with my own eyes. Here this person is seeing Krishna. And I was just, I didn't know what to, and so then the temple president, Gargamuni then, was just rushing around getting everything ready, and he saw Prabhupada all the time. So he just rushed up to me, just put a garland in my hand and said, "Here, put this on Prabhupada." And then I almost fell over backwards. So we were lined up at the curb on La Cienega Boulevard. We were lined up at the curb. And then, the movement, it was so just, just folksy. So the official car for the founder Acharya in his world headquarters was a little Volkswagen Beetle. Little Volkswagen. That's the only car they have. So I was standing there at the curb, and my God, pure devotee, Prabhupada's coming. And so then the car drove up. Prabhupada was in the front passenger seat, and there was a street light just above where the car, so I could see Prabhupada directly. And then when I saw Prabhupada, I had this powerful realization, and that is, I was always seeing him. I was always seeing him. It's like Prabhupada said that when you go back to the spiritual world, you'll realize that you were always seeing Krishna. Everything that you thought was a beautiful sunset, or a beautiful piece of music, or loving friendship, the love you experienced, everything that you were seeing, it was actually Krishna was creating that, and Krishna was present in it. And so all the things that you admire, that you love, all the things that inspire you, you're actually seeing Krishna. And Krishna himself says that in the last verse of chapter 10. Yajad vibhuti matsatvam. Whatever powerful thing in this world, there is in this world. Yajad vibhuti matsatvam, srimad, which is beautiful. Srimad urjitam, or powerful, or glorious. Tattadeva. That's kind of in Sanskrit how you would say in each and every case. In each and every case, tattadeva avagacha tvam, understand. And even the word understand is very significant. Sanskrit's amazing. Ava means downward, like avatara, one who crosses down. That's what the word avatara literally means. And so, and gacha means go. That's where we get the go. The G, ga, Sanskrit ga is English go. So there's the imperative. So to like go deeply into it. In other words, really go within it. Don't just see the surface. And so that's what Krishna, that's the word he uses. So every word, every prefix, like ava. So when Krishna says tatadeva, in each and every case, ava gachat, go below the surface, go deeply into it, and you will see mama tejo angsha, some of them. It comes from a spark of my splendor. So in other words, everything you've ever admired in your life, whether it's, a beautiful face or powerful bit of knowledge or loving relationship or the food, delicious food, enchanting music, everything that has ever drawn your admiration, you were actually seeing Krishna. You just didn't know you were seeing Krishna. And so Krishna consciousness doesn't mean to give up or poo-poo the things of this world, but to bring Krishna. Don't see them without Krishna. It's like if someone's in your kitchen eating and you say, what are you doing? Well, I'm just having a good meal. Yeah, but I don't know you and this is my house. And so it's not that we don't admire the things of there is beauty in this world. There are amazing things. The problem is not to think that beautiful things are beautiful. That's not the problem. The problem is to forget that beauty comes from Krishna. So it's not a question of rejecting the world, it's bringing Krishna into the world. So that, give credit where credit's due. Don't be a shoplifter. And that's what Krishna says in the Gita, that if you enjoy all the things of this world, but you don't give back, like that great George Harrison song, isn't it a pity? Forgetting to give back, isn't it a pity? And so Krishna says, stena eva saha. That person is simply a thief. That's the beautiful verse, which I love, which I translate very, very literally, and evam pravartitam chakram, which literally means a wheel has been made to turn. A wheel or a cycle. A wheel has been made to turn. And one who does not keep the wheel turning, nanu vartyatiha jaha, very literal translation. One who does not keep the wheel turning, aghayur, their ayur, like your duration of life, like Ayurveda. So agha means sin. The whole duration of their life is an offense to the universe. Indriya ramo, because they just wanted to enjoy their senses. Mogam partha sajivti, that person lives in vain because they received but didn't give back. And so the natural, it's like there's this really great pop song from the, I guess, early 60s, Since I Fell for You, Lenny Welch. Anyway, if you want, I'll send you a link. I mean, it's really good. But the, it has a Krishna conscious, because the opening words are, when you just give love and never get love, you'd better let love depart. And so, of course, I mean, we should love selflessly, but there's something wrong about taking someone's love and not reciprocating. If you've really taken the love, in other words, if you just say, okay, I don't think I want to be with you, okay, fair enough. But if you take someone's love and you don't give back, and so that's the cycle. I mean, Krishna's talking about how through the devas, demigods, everything we have, our food. I mean, food grows because God makes it grow. He says in the Gita, Bijam abhiyam, I am the unperishing seed, the bija. So That's the cycle. We receive, Prabhupada gave us everything, and then we give back to Prabhupada. So if our attitude is, well, Prabhupada saved me, Prabhupada gave me everything, so now I'm just gonna, make a great life for myself. And thanks, Prabhupada, see you in the spiritual world, maybe. I mean, the fact that we've been given this unparalleled knowledge, peerless knowledge, and if you really understand, self-realization can never be selfish, because it's just like, for example, when the sun rises. Krishna compares self-realization to the sun rising, in the sense that when the sun rises, it illuminates everything equally and simultaneously. Self-realization is always equal and simultaneous. In other words, when you are realizing yourself, you must, if it's genuine, you must be realizing everybody else as equally an eternal soul. You can't, there's no such thing as selfish self-realization, because if we're just, all for ourselves, then we're not really having self-realization. So as I see myself as a soul, I see everyone else as a soul. And that's the proof that it's a genuine, real self-realization experience. And I see that everyone's family. I mean, any decent person, any normal, decent person, if there's some emergency in the family, like someone is really like in danger or something, I mean, the whole family just comes together. And so in the same way, Krishna, 3 times in the Gita, Krishna is mentioned as father. Also, he's mentioned as mother, by the way. It's said in the Gita, Krishna says, Pitaha Masya Jagato, I'm the father of this universe. Mata, and the mother, and the grandfather, and the creator. So if you are really becoming Krishna conscious, you see everyone as family. And how can I sit idly by when people in my eternal family are suffering and in ignorance and just basically making a mess of everything, their own lives and the planet along with it? So if we really get it, we care. And that's what lifts you above the third class positions called Kanishta Adhikari, which literally in Sanskrit means lowest. By the way, you'll be thrilled to hear that the superlative suffix in English, est, finest, best, or wealthiest, is pure Sanskrit. Because, like, for example, you can say Shrestha, same S, anyway, enough phonetics, historical. So, okay, back to the matinee. Anyway, so yes, and that's the thrill. It's like, again, I mean, I'm really grateful to Krishna Das and Janapriya, because that shows real understanding of Krishna consciousness. And all of you that are also participating. And of course, we have the Oregon All-Stars are here. Leslie and Dana, they're also, everyone that knows them loves them. And so, they're doing wonderful service. And Nritya Kishori, who is, she always tries to stop me from praising her, but it never works. So she's doing a wonderful program. She, by the way, is in charge, director of one of the best gurukulas in North America, children's schools. And she has time to raise a son. And she has a wonderful Krishna West type program in Dallas. And so she's a blessing of her guru. I feel that Tamal Krishna has blessed us with Nritya Kishori. So anyway, we're also fortunate. David, I should say, is helping me. He's too late. What's that Beatles song? Too late. So anyway, he's helping us with the website for Krishna West. He's doing really important work. So thank you all so much. And in a sense, I'm reliving my youth in Krishna consciousness, because there's such a wonderful community created here and other places, in Krishna West, where really is a spiritual family, and there really are genuine loving relationships among the people participating. And that's the way it was when I first joined the cult of Chaitanya. So thank you all very much. Any questions or? Very good. So thank you all very much, and I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow. And Panchali, she's one of our heroes in Krishna West. So, oh, Nalini.
Hare Krishna, Charyadeva.
Nalinita, mil gracias.
Gracias a usted, Charya. Saludos para todos.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.